This video was brought to you by Embedded System Solution, a company composed of like-minded electrical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists, and whose main goal is assisting our engineering customers, non-engineering customers, and technician level customers with their electrical and computer engineering level and technician level needs. Our customers range everywhere from engineering students to university professors, technicians to engineers, junior engineers to senior engineers. Please feel free to visit us at www.embeddedsystemsolution.com. Again, www.embeddedsystemsolution.com, or better yet, email us at support@embeddedsystemsolution.com. And like always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like. Okay, so continue on from the previous training session. I forgot to mention that the file system goes in the hard drive, and this is important when it comes to configuring it. So these slides, this presentation is mainly makes the assumption that you already installed Git and now you're trying to configure Git. Now you can't move forward unless you configure Git. It's not just installing it and using it. You must configure it. So for that, you have to understand a little bit about the file system. And so this is the C drive. Now inside of this is the assumption is we're talking obviously about Windows, right? And so under the C drive, there's a lot of folders. You know, if we're only displaying the folders that are or directories that are relevant to Git, to configuring Git, because if we were to show all the folders, oh my god, there's so many, especially folders within folders, the hierarchy, it just goes, you know, you go folder after folder. So it's only the relevant folder, so keep that in mind. So of course we have the Windows folder. Now Windows has absolutely nothing to do with Git. We're not going to worry about it, we're not going to touch it, but it's just interesting to know that that's where the operating systems, the files, anything related to the operating system resides in. And so another folder is the program files x84 program files folder, and as we mentioned, that's where applications get installed, 64-bit applications. So if you install 64-bit Git, that's where it's supposed to be. So that's where you'll find the application, the Git. Now program files x86, that's 32-bit, and then you also have the users folder. So the users folder, theoretically speaking, you should only have files there. You shouldn't have applications that get installed there. And I've seen computer engineers install applications in that folder, and it's like, wow. So anyway, so network admins, again, they recognize that folder because that's the folder where you back up the files that are supposed to be backed up from the computer. That's where they reside. So, and that's where they should reside, and that's where your Git project folder should be. So anyways, moving forward. So if you tinker with the folders on the left, you might destroy your computer system. If you tinker with the folders on the right, there's absolutely nothing that can happen, you know. So anyways, I forgot why I drew this. There was another reason why, but I just can't remember. Anyways, so under the program file, so for every single application that you install on the computer, they have a folder, right? So how many applications get installed on a computer, in a Windows computer? Oh my god. Even default applications that get installed whenever you buy a new computer that you don't even want, they're pre-installed. So anyways, so for every application that gets installed, it gets its own directory. That's also important. So any file, anything relevant to the application is inside of that directory. So let's suppose you have Notepad application. So you have under program files, under sheet program files, Notepad, you have a Notepad folder. And as you can imagine, every single thing related, including the executable, the actual application, it's right there in that directory. And similarly, you have GIMP application, you have Microsoft Office. So basically any application that gets installed on that Windows computer, it gets its own folder, and all the files relevant to it are stored there. Now, as you can imagine, Git is no different, right? It has its own directory, and inside of the directory, it has its own files and folders and anything relevant to Git. Again, you must know this to configure Git. So, but it has many more folders, many more files, but we're only discussing the ones that are relevant to configuring Git, right? And so you have the binary, which it's self-explanatory, right? So you have the source code, you run into the compiler, whatever comes out is executable. Well, that's essentially what gets loaded into the binary. It's executable code, right? Mostly, and sometimes applications are composed of several applications, so you have several executables, .exes inside of that file folder. But anyways, beyond the scope. And so you also have the etc. folder in the Git, and that one is also important. And you have, you know, and as an example, you have the license.txt. Now, obviously, license, we don't care about that, right? But still, it's nice to show it. But anyways, under the binary, when you install Git, you have the git.exe, and that's the actual Git. So if you're running the command line and you type git add file, that's the command, that's the actual command that's being launched, that's the command that's being executed. So That's the heart of Git, but it also needs other files, other folders that are within the Git folder. So again, but that's the heart of it. And so under the etc folder, you also have another file called Git Config, and that's going to be important. We're going to explain that, but not just yet. But that has configuration settings in terms of Git, so that's one of the ones that we're going to modify to configure Git. Now, notice that I don't believe that one has a file extension, so that might be weird to look at it. So whenever you tinker with it, just be mindful of that. So, anyways, let's keep going. So let's get rid of these because they have nothing to do with Git, right? Now, also the license, we're just gonna get rid of it. Now, program files, let me see, so if I'm not, okay, so if you install the 32-bit version, then you're gonna see exactly the same thing, except it's gonna be in the program files, x86, right? But again, that's the old-fashioned, so we're moving away from that. We just want 64-bit, so we're making an assumption that you're up to date in terms of the computer and the installer. So anyways, so let's flip it around, because again, program files x86 we don't worry about, and we're gonna draw like the hierarchy, the structure of the files and folders, because that configuring Git users, it's very important, right? So you need to configure, you need to tinker with that folder to configure Git. So for every single account, every single user that you add to a computer, so a Windows laptop, you have obviously the admin of the computer. But let's suppose you have one computer, you have your daughter or your son or your friend, and they're going to use the computer also. Typically what you do is you create an account for them. And when you create an account in terms of file system wise, what you're doing is you're creating a separate folder under users. And every single account that's added has its own folder, or it's supposed to be. And the reason behind that is to keep privacy, right? As we'll see shortly right now. But anything that the user does under their account, the files that they download or paint that they draw, like let's suppose they do Photoshop, it stores on their directory. And like I said, it keeps a sense of privacy. So if you have 3 accounts, user accounts on a computer, you're going to have 3 of these folders. So just be mindful of that. Now, you can name it, whatever account name is the name of the folder. So if you happen to name it Superman, the account name, there's under C users, there's going to be a Superman folder. And so, anyways, so we're making the assumption that it's Emilio Zapata, that's the username. So there's a folder called user Zapata. And by the way, from now on, we're going to keep covering Emilio Zapata. So that's the account name, the username. And so under user, the folder, you have desktop folder, you have download folder, you have video folders, and you have music folders, and you have other folders, right? And so theoretically speaking, if you're under the account, anytime you download music like MP3 or what is it, WAV, it's supposed to be in the music. You download videos like MP4, it's supposed to be under videos. You just regular download document. Downloads is generic, it could be a video, you could be downloading a video, downloading a music, downloading a picture, JPEG. It goes under downloads. Now desktop, that's supposed to be for application launchers. At least that's originally what it was created for. And so, anyways, every single account, what we're trying to get at is every single account has these folders. But 2 of the folders that it has that are important towards configuring Git, it's documents. And by the way, Git, any single time you create a project folder that has all the source files, you're supposed to save it in documents. It's supposed to be, that's the file path. See, users, the username, and then documents. That's where it's, only because it makes things simple, right? Organizing things. But so every single user account also has documents, but once you install Git, it also has a file called .git config, right? And it, depending, it might be hidden, it might not be hidden, but that's the name of the file, so it does have an extension. We're not interested in all the other folders, only those 2 files. Now, every single account that's on the computer, it has those 2 files, right? Without a doubt. And so we are interested in terms of configuring Git, we're interested in those 2 files. Now, under documents, that's where you're supposed to have your project folder. So if you're designing an Android app or a website or even a embedded system, the hardware, Altium, you're creating the PCB, it should be under documents. And there, the My Project, it can be whatever name you have. And any file relevant to it, it's going to be in there. But you're also going to see inside of that folder is going to be a hidden folder that's called .git. And there's a way for you to see them. If it's on a Windows computer, you got to do certain settings, and I'll explain it later. But you got to do certain settings to show the hidden files, and in this case you're showing the hidden files and hidden folders. It is hidden, and there's a reason why